They're cute, they're little, and they're pretty cool pets. We're going to talk about Viper Geckos this week on the Reptile Parties YouTube channel. Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of the Reptile Parties and YYC Nature and Education Center YouTube channel. This week we are going to meet the Viper Gecko. So these guys are super cool and super cute little geckos. They are found in Pakistan and they live in rocky outcroppings, and they get their name because their scales are very keeled and look very similar to some of the viper species that are also found in Pakistan. So this is a way to protect themselves, just kind of like their body shape and that scale and even their color pattern. It might make a predator just think twice at first glance thinking they're a snake, even though they are not. They're also sometimes called turnip-tailed or carrot-tailed geckos because they have a very thick little tail. So just like leopard geckos and African fat-tailed geckos, they store fat in their tail. It looks a little bit different than the fat tails and the leopard geckos. It's sort of more short and thick as opposed to more tapered like the leopard geckos. And they do store fat, that they also have the ability to drop their tail. So that's one thing you have to be aware of if you don't want a gecko that has a regrown tail. You always want to be very, very gentle with them. These guys are very small geckos. That's one of the things that's kind of cool about them. As a baby, they're about an inch. And then they will grow, but they're only going to grow up to about 3 or 4 inches. So they are a smaller gecko species. Now that has pros and cons in terms of space. They don't necessarily need the height or as much space as, geckos like Leachianus or leopards or things like that. But you do have to be aware of that when you're handling them. They can be escape artists, so making sure that everything is very secured, because a gecko this size disappearing in your house probably is going to actually disappear in your house. It's going to be very, very difficult to find. Unlike a lot of other gecko species, these guys actually do really well in groups. In the wild, they live in groups. So you can have 3 or 4 of them in a group, and they'll be perfectly happy. Whereas a lot of other geckos, unless you have a huge amount of space for them, they will be very territorial and should only be together for breeding. With these guys, males are typically okay together in groups with females. You don't want to have either an entirely female group or maybe a male with a couple of girls. You don't want just a bunch of males or bachelor pad because they can be a little bit territorial, and that's the way it is with a lot of reptiles and other animals. Look at that tail. Look how cute it is. They're so adorable. Now, as babies and juveniles, they do actually have the ability to climb smooth surfaces as well, so that's something you have to be aware of. They do like to climb. Lots of places for them to hide is really important. They are a nocturnal species of gecko, so they are going to be spending their time during the day sleeping and then emerging at night to hunt. They are insectivores, so you are going to be feeding them bugs. As a baby, it's pretty much fruit flies or pinhead crickets. So you have to be able to have access to getting a fruit fly culture that you can grow and have the fruit flies. And then as they get bigger, they can eat bigger prey. So right now he is eating little crickets. He or she is eating little crickets as well as mealworms. And they can chow down on a mealworm pretty well. As it gets bigger, we'll also give it waxworms and stuff. There have been people that have seen these guys as an adult take down almost a full-size cricket, which is pretty impressive. They can do well on larger prey, but you do want to be very aware, especially as a baby. You do not want them to be impacted or harmed because crickets and other bugs, they do chew, they do have mandibles and mouths, so they can do damage to your little gecko as well. So they like tight spaces. That's what they're going to like to hide in. So things like cork bark is really good for them. People will use the bottom of plant pots, have them on their side, or things like that. You don't want a really big spacious hide for them like you would with a snake or some other animals. They like tight confined spaces. Now I don't have just one of these guys. I actually have 3. So I'm going to grab another one so we can see them in all their adorable little gecko-ness. So there's 2 of them. We have 3, like I said, and they all live together, and they're all great together. Now, properly cared for, these guys can live 10 to 15 years. So, like all reptiles, they are a commitment. This isn't something that you get for 2 years, and then you kind of are looking for a new one or something like that. And that's such an important thing. Even these little guys, people will think they're similar to having something like a mouse or a hamster because they're small. You're not going to have that big commitment, but you are. They are going to be there with you for 10 to 15 years if you care for them properly. So you do have to keep that in mind. And if you do have them, males and females, they are potentially going to breed. They'll lay 2 eggs every 2 to 3 weeks during breeding season and then bury them. They're pretty easy to incubate and hatch. These guys aren't as commonly kept as leopard geckos, in part, I think, because of their size, but they could be really, really rewarding for the right person who doesn't necessarily want a large amount of space. A large amount of space for something like a leopard gecko or a bearded dragon. They've got a lot of personality. Their eyes are really cool. I don't know how good of a shot we can get of that with a phone, but so, really cool eyes, really cool just structure and face. I got these guys from Jungle Jewel Exotics. Lucas, who was with me on Scaled, I got these guys from them, and he recommended them as just a different gecko that would be really cool for education. And so far, I'm very, very smitten with these guys. They've grown a lot since we got them in October. And so, yeah, he's licking his eyes. We'll see if they'll do the lick when you boop them. No, not necessarily. So, if you're interested in geckos and you want something a little bit different, these guys could be a great choice. Just have to keep in mind, because they're smaller, you have to be very gentle with how you handle them. You should be gentle with all of them, but, it would be much easier to kind of accidentally squish one of these guys in a leopard gecko. But pretty rewarding and could be a really good choice for you and your family. So that is it for this week. Thanks for checking in. I know it's been a bit since we've had some videos consistently, but it's been a bit chaotic at the Nature Center, and we're finally getting to that point where we're going to be opening up. I know I keep saying that, but we're actually there. We have our business license. We just have to get our classroom in, and we're going to be operating. So if you want to know what's happening with us, check out our social media below. A great way to support us is on Patreon. If you're local to Calgary, you get all sorts of discounts on Patreon with the Nature Center. But even if you're not local, starting at just $3 a month, you can support us. You get a backstage look. You get first dibs on seeing these videos. A whole bunch of other perks and things like discounts on our OutSchool programs. So if you're not in Calgary, you can still sign up for our virtual programs through OutSchool, and if you're on Patreon, you get a discount there as well. So thanks very much for checking this video. If you like it, make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe, and we will see you next time.